Welcome to Longterm, the podcast where we talk about the things that we need to recover from. There's lots that we can potentially have in our lives that we need some sort of recovery in one form or another that needs to be addressed. And that's what this podcast is for. It's having those conversations and openly talking about those things that might be wounds that we just really don't want to show people. We want to show people our best beach lives on social media, right? But the truth is that we can't really reach that height of humanity and our self and our success unless we start addressing some of those things and unpacking them. Anyway, I am here with a very special guest. And Jeffrey, I'll let you go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah. My name is Jeff Johnston. I'm from Cedar Rapids, Iowa, and had an opportunity to meet you a few years back when I was in Little Rock. And so it's nice to see a familiar face and really appreciate this opportunity and what you do.
Yeah, no problem at all. Yeah, no, it's a small world.
Yeah, it is.
Come back to Oklahoma City. But I think, whenever you're working within the recovery field, I've learned that you start crossing some of the people, even if it took us a few years to find each other again.
Yeah.
But you start running into some of those people because it's a highly, highly dedicated field to where, I don't know, I go to a lot of marketing and those types of conventions and stuff too. And you'll see new people all the time because there's a high turnover rate for all those. And then, but for recovery, it seems like people are really invested in this in the long term.
Yeah, it's. I pinch myself, the people I've met. Preceding this whole space I'm in now, I was in investments and did the conferences, and we talked about all the stuff that money did that's supposed to help people. Mm-hmm. But as I realized, as I got into the recovery communities, that people have poor relationships with many things. In my case, it was alcohol, it was gambling, which is kind of an offshoot of a money relationship.
Yeah.
And then, and I can share a little bit about my why, like what we do today and how we got there. But when I was in Little Rock speaking at the Wolf Street clinic there, or facility there, or treatment, I don't know what they call them, recovery community centers.
It's a little of all the things. Yeah.
I was there really kind of in an angry place, because our oldest son, Seth, had died from fentanyl. At the age of 23, and that was before my wife had died from alcoholism. So when I met you, I was in that transition where I bought the RV, going around the United States. It was a little chip on my shoulder. I kind of anointed myself as angry fentanyl dad. But as I realized over time that when I told my story, the way I was telling it wasn't really full of empathy and love and inspiration. So I kind of pivoted and got more into empowerment. So now in the recovery community, I'm meeting so many people that fill my heart up, to fill my tank up, because as an advocate, as you know, you can get drained pretty quick if you're always helping other people.
Right.
And so I think there's this opportunity in this community to be less about prevention, less about fear mongering. Don't do drugs or you'll die. It's like, where's the love in that? And I think what I'm finding for me, that doesn't fit me anymore. It's like that doesn't serve me anymore. It's like when alcohol doesn't serve you, you quit. When drugs don't serve you, you quit. Well, when you have a fear-based mindset and you realize it doesn't serve you, you quit. So what we've done now with our app that I can talk about in a minute is it's all based on empowerment and autonomous learning and inspiration, and you have a lot more power over what you're going through in your life than what people tell you that you have. Like you're powerless to alcohol. I don't necessarily buy that. I don't think you're powerless to anything. I think we need to start looking more inside and finding reasons why we can do something, not reasons why we're afraid to do something. It's a whole different shift in psychology.
No, I agree completely. And it's so easy to...
I was all over the board there, but that's the way my mind works.
So many good points. It's easy to just keep pouring and pouring and pouring and pouring out until you're completely depleted. Yep. And then what do you do at that point? How do you refill yourself? And so, it's a... I think you mentioned your son and fentanyl. I think that was my first introduction. I think it just hit me whenever you said that. I think that was my first introduction to the fentanyl as a real problem that was happening in the country right now.
Seth's whole journey or horrific experience started with an Adderall prescription when he was 15. I shared when I spoke in Little Rock. And Adderall for the right person at the right time and the right dosage can be a very effective tool. But in my son's case, it was prescribed to kill this thing called attention deficit disorder, this werewolf, this demon. Yeah. Which was just, in hindsight now, it's just the wrong way to present it. Instead of being told that your lack of attention, your your love, your intensity isn't a disease. It's something to be nurtured. And again, I miss that as a dad. I have it myself. I've never been medicated. I'm sure you have it as well. I mean, when you're passionate and intense about stuff, it's one thing, but we miss something there. I think I think a lot of people are culpable for these problems. And so Seth's journey just started with Adderall, then it was alcohol and vaping, and drunk driving, breaking and entering, and then he went to prison. And I kind of thought as a dad, everyone talks about rock bottom. What's more rock bottom than prison, right? Well, death is more rock bottom. And he got out and met somebody. We think he maybe been trying heroin for a little bit. And in 2016, there was 46,000 Americans that died from overdose. And last year, I think it was 103. So you do the math. That's not a good direction. I think last year was the first year it's actually dropped a little bit, which is great, but we can't get overconfident. One death is too many. One death. And there's 909 Americans every day that die from the deaths of despair, Ty. So think about this for a minute. You got 909 deaths a day. How many families are destroyed that death isn't a part of the story? You don't need to have death to have devastation and destruction. I think that's my story. Sure, I have to share the death, but there was a lot of problems in our family before Seth died and before my wife died. And I think there's more families that can relate to that part of the addiction story than the death side. So sure, I have to share the story to maybe open that door to get people to feel, hey, if this guy can share it, I can too. And that ties probably what I'm really finding out as I talk around the country and get invited to podcasts like yours, is that, one of us has to kind of be the first one to show vulnerability. And often it's me. And then once I do, you can kind of see that shoulder come down like, well, God, if this guy can share it, I'll talk about my dad. I'll talk about my wife. It's like, I don't see any downside. What's the other method? Keeping this, especially as a man, keeping this and showing young men it's not okay to cry. It's not okay to hug each other and say, I love you, Ty. But BS. I call BS on that. We need more of this love and empathy. And that's how we're gonna right this sinking ship in my heart.
And there are so many that still they become bitter. You know what I mean? Whenever it's the child that has passed away because of substance abuse or whatever, and it can go several ways. You either go really, really passionate and try to help other people, or you sort of.
And you got to be careful there too.
You do.
It's taking me to the edge.
Or you sort of withdraw, and you it's hard to come out of that shell. You got an RV. You took off across the country.
Ended up in Little Rock, Arkansas.
So what inspired you to do that rather than to just dwell on it personally and just deal with that?
Well, part of my talk is this idea of better, not bitter. And I think those are the two roads that we have through life. And so any situation you have, you get fired from a job, your spouse files divorce papers, you bankrupt your company that was your brainchild when you're younger, is you really are presented this opportunity as a choice. I think choices are everything, and choices precede consequences. So you can choose to do drugs, you can choose to drink that alcohol, you can choose to do whatever. But if you look at life as a constant choice of better or bitter, and bitter isn't permanent. Bitter is temporary. So maybe you fall off the wagon. Maybe you say something to your spouse you regret. It's not the end all. There's always a lesson to be learned in anything like that. It's only a mistake if you repeat it and you don't learn. And so in my case, I looked at something like death, which is, how do you find something better? Well, let me ask you this question. How can you not? What's the alternative?
Right.
And I'm not trying to say anything disparaging about people that like in my wife's case, where she, literally, I don't know how to say this, be careful here, but, drank herself to death, for lack of a better way to say it. What are the lessons in that? There's some lesson in there. And my job kind of is to keep digging, keep finding that out, sharing the story. Man, this conference has been unbelievable. I mean, the people I've already cried with and hugged and shared stories, and how many people come up and said, hey, I saw you speak. And it's like, sometimes I don't feel like I'm doing enough, I know I am, but I need that. I need validation like everyone else, because it's easy for me to just feel like it's a helpless cause. Like, am I really making a difference? Well, one parent texts me, or one college student says they read my book, and That's what it's all about. One person watches your podcast and goes, man, that's what I needed to hear today. Yeah. Isn't that really what it's all about?
Exactly. Yeah, I was gonna say I don't know anything about not knowing if this is doing any good or not, because I'm not there when they're listening or viewing. But no, you start seeing the view numbers go up on certain episodes, and then you start getting these messages of like, hey, last week we released an episode talking. It was between me and somebody I've known for a long time, but I never knew that she had gone through a lot of childhood trauma, and we had really shared past. Growing up with alcoholic parents. And it allowed other people to feel comfortable to reach out to us and be like, I always thought that when my father was, yelling at me for, not being good enough at school, I really thought that I wasn't good enough. I didn't realize that he was just sort of projecting his own insecurities onto me. And like, as a 30-something-year-old woman now, that's good that we started opening those doors. You've got a long journey ahead of you. But I'm glad that we had a small piece of that journey, to open that up.
Yeah, and I think in regards to what we're doing with the Brighton app and about this mental wellness planning idea is that it's all about arming you with another arrow in the quiver.
Right.
So when that monster shows up, that demon shows up, that beast shows up, you have to have as many arrows in the quiver, right? You just keep firing them. Maybe it's meditation, maybe it's breath work, maybe it's a podcast. Maybe it's an app. Maybe it's artificial intelligence that can help you in your journal entries. Maybe it's going to the gym. But I think we need to be careful as advocates in this space to pick a lane and say, this is the way to do it. AA is the way to do it. Sure. Psychedelic-assisted therapy, that's the way to do it. Or it isn't. You need to figure that out, Ty. Yeah. But you need to have all the options available, as many as you possibly can. Try them all, as long as they're legal and you're careful. But it's like, I'm optimistic. I really am, that not just that there are already really good resources out there, but we're going to invent new ones with this AI tidal wave coming. Yeah. And we can either put our head in the sand and say, oh, it's evil, it's bad, just like we blame social media for all of kids' problems today. That's not the problem. Social media is a symptom to the problem. The problem is, why are they on 4 hours of TikTok in the first place?
Right.
So it's like blaming fentanyl. Fentanyl again is the end of Seth's death, but there were so many things that built up to Seth's death that we could have intervened better. We could have prevented. It's easy to just say, oh, fentanyl's a weapon of mass destruction. Let's go to the border. And you think that's going to stop any of this stuff? I don't. No. I don't. Yeah. It's an optical thing that makes you feel better. The optics look good, but until you change behavior, figure out why. And I think the best quote I ever said, and I'm going to talk about this tomorrow when I talk, was Desmond Tutu's quote. Maybe you're familiar with it. We need to stop pulling people out of the river and go further upstream and find out why they're falling in the first place.
Right. Yeah.
And that's an old quote. It's been out there a while. But when I started designing our app, I'm like, there's something about that. Do we just add more firemen to put out more fires? Do we build more treatment centers to deal with more treatment?
Right.
Or do we try to put them all out of business? Oh, that's a utopian mindset.
Right.
But 80% of the startups, 80% of the money is going into treatment.
Yeah.
Okay? And it's like, you think you're pouring water on the fire, you're pouring gasoline on the fire. Because if it was working, you show me the numbers.
Right.
People are worse off. There's more people struggling.
Agreed.
So we need to get further upstream, get it options for people. And then if they don't make it, then have the treatment. But if we just keep adding more treatment, we're going to run out of humans. Honestly. It won't matter. The math's not boding well in that regard.
Exactly.
So I am confident that we are confident that Brighton is a great opportunity or a great resource. But I'll be candid with you. An app like us could come to market every day. It's not enough.
Okay.
It's not enough.
Yeah.
It's not enough. We need all hands on deck. We need dads to be more responsible in families. We need moms to be more responsible. We need brothers. We need the social media companies, podcasts. Everybody needs to do their small part.
Right.
That's my dream.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We had a mother or listener, that reached out last week, and she was a mother of a son who had passed away from fentanyl and overdosing. But she was really upset, and like she had dedicated her life going forward to trying to get justice for him in pursuing whoever it was that sold him the drugs that had fentanyl and trying to get him to, I guess he came out with a light sentence, and she thought that it should be more severe. Yeah. But she was also, glad that there was, more security, I guess you'd say, about trying to get less fentanyl coming over the borders and all of that. But like you said, there's so many different areas that we need to hit, and yes, that's a good step. If we can get less fentanyl coming into the country, that's great. But also, we need better prevention in schools, because not one of the people I've ever interviewed and asked whenever you started using any kind of drugs or substance abuse, did you ever think about DARE? Did you ever think about the Red Ribbon Week? You know what I mean? They were like, no, that was like a fun time where you wore pajamas at school. You know what I mean? And that's about it. And it's like those preventative measures that we have in school are not doing their job.
Let me. We have a few more minutes, right?
Yes, please.
I want to hit on what you talked about, because I know, and a lot of them are moms. They've done some amazing things.
Yeah.
And I've got a couple that come to mind right now. Her name is Amanda Faith. She's a good friend of mine out in California. Her son, Luca, died. He's 13, Snapchat. It was fentanyl. And she has been awesome in trying to get these laws and to do all these things.
Yeah.
And we talk a lot. And I admire the courage it takes on a mom or a dad to go after these drug dealers and go after I do. But for Jeff Johnston, it was not the lane that you can't do them all. I can't be involved in all that and then you don't have the bandwidth.
Yeah.
And what good am I if I'm a mental health train wreck myself? It's like, and so my heart goes out. I love the fight in some of these moms and dads. These mama bears are... You don't poke the mama bear.
Not at all. No.
All the moms and dads that are doing the things in the legislative front, they're putting the drug dealers behind you. I mean, I understand that. I'm not that guy to say anything disparaging. I can just say I don't have the fight to do that. To me, I would rather design an app that can prevent all this from happening, but we still need those we still need those people,
of course,
that are doing that. So it's like, I think as an advocate, Ty, you just got to kind of pick your lane and go all in.
Yeah.
But if I did 5 different advocacy things and did 20% to each, I might as well not do any of them.
Right.
So those moms and dads that go all in on that area, God bless them, power to them.
Yeah.
But for me, it was taking too much out of me, and being angry fentanyl dad, I got beat down.
Yeah.
It was a fight I wasn't going to win, but not that I can win the other fights, but it's a lot, for me, it's more rewarding,
Yeah.
But yeah, I just, this whole losing a child is just like, it's hard to, I used to watch movies when people died and I'd go, man, and then it happens. And then my wife dies on top of that. And I'm like, yeah, but what story am I telling myself? I'm not obligated to tell a story that everyone else tells. I can just tell my own story, and those are all memories that I've kind of convinced myself that part of my life didn't exist in the traumatic way. I'm not obligated to weight my life down. And just recently, I've been at a liberating experience I had where I finally broke through after 8 years. I don't feel a sense of obligation to live their lives anymore through me. It takes a lot out of me.
Yeah.
But doesn't mean I love them any less, Ty.
Right.
Actually, I love them more. But I got one chance to live. And I can't be burdened down with thinking everything I have to do is for Seth and Prudence. They know how I feel about them. I don't have to prove to you how I feel about them.
Right.
And again, that's a shift in my advocacy versus being an activist, which is very toxic and negative, to being a loving advocate. And I have to look out for me. I'm 59, man. I only got so many years left. I don't want to be living my life trying to bring them back because they're not here. So when you reach that point, when you've been into the abyss and you've considered taking your own life, and now you're like, I don't want to go back to those spots. And but it's like recovery from alcohol or drugs, recovering from trauma. It's your own pathway. There's no right answer. And some people it's going to the gym. Some it's tattoos. I got those too. And some it's a podcast. Some it's a book. It's like whatever you need to do to not just, who wants to survive anyway?
Right.
I don't want to survive. I want to thrive,
Yeah.
I ain't going to survive if all I'm doing is living my life for other people especially ones that aren't here. And it sounds bad, but
just trying to get through to the next day and the next day.
I had to do that because I'll be honest with you. After Prudence died, my mental health, even though I was doing things that everyone thought, hey, this guy's amazing, I was in a bad place that Christmas after she passed. Only a few people were aware of how suicidal I was. Gun in my hand, sitting there thinking. And my mom died 4 months later after my wife died. The day after we put our cat down. Yeah, dude, you better stay away from me. It's like I was really believing everyone around me was meant to die. And I had to tell myself a new story. That's not the reality of life. It just happens to be the circumstances.
Right.
Circumstantial. It's not, I didn't do anything wrong. So I've given myself grace. I've given myself mercy. I really feel I'm the luckiest person here. I really do. And I feel Seth and Prudence here, but I feel just something brewing like this.
Yeah.
Everybody's stories are so courageous, and I get my tank filled up by having these conversations. So thank you for everybody who follows me and supports me. And I may look like I'm strong all the time, but I'm not. And but coming back from this conference, I'll be flying in the clouds.
Yeah.
Isn't it great?
It is.
Yeah.
I've noticed so many people here are so well dressed and so well spoken, but like you don't know what they've been through until you have those conversations. And like because I could glance at somebody and be like, oh, they've got it together.
It's everybody.
Yeah.
It's everybody.
Everybody's got something.
I was in prison for 3 years. I'm like, what? I had a drug driving once. You were in prison for 3 years. Like, man, and they're like, they love my story, and I'm like, yeah, but your story's more amazing.
Right. That's how I feel.
I had breakfast. The guy was in prison 12 years.
Yeah.
Lifer. As a 15-year-old, and they changed the laws, and he got released.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm like, dude, you're my hero. And I'm telling him my story, and he's crying with me, and I'm like, yeah, there's something magical about vulnerability. Again, these are two grown men crying at breakfast.
It's normal at these kinds of conventions,
Yeah, but there's a movement going on, I think, in humanity where so many people are broken, or at least they tell them that story.
Yeah.
And I'm not ready to buy that yet.
I think we're more open to talk about it and to conquer the mental health side of everything. I do want to talk about your app. It's a Brighton app. What is it? What does it do? And who's it serve?
Yeah, the Reader's Digest version. You're old enough to know what Reader's Digest is. I say that to Gen Zers. They're like, what the hell's that? So I was a financial advisor before, and we would do financial planning for people, and we would invest their money in, say, stocks, bonds, and real estate. Well, when I got into the mental health space, I went to conferences, I read books, I immersed myself in learning about this topic. Before I could be an expert, I have to learn about it.
Right.
And I realized that there was this gap of planning. Everything was episodic. Everything was acute. Everything was, cross your fingers. Johnny doesn't have a problem, but when he does, I'll send him to a therapist. And that's the Western mindset. And you get into some other cultures, and they're heading off these storms way before they happen. I mean, the indigenous people, many, many years ago, this preparation of the trials and tribulations at life. And we don't do that with kids today. We coddle them, we protect them, and then we just hope they don't have problems. Well, it's not working. It's not working. And so I thought, why don't we introduce this generation to this mental wellness planning concept, like financial planning, not mental health, because that's clinical.
Okay.
Mental wellness. We don't ever use the word health on the app. We don't even call people on our app users. We call them thrivers, because I don't like the word user for obvious reasons. But if I introduce a generation to this idea of mental wellness planning, what would my human asset classes be, right?
Right.
So for investing, you have stocks, bonds, and real estate. Well, in mental wellness, what would your human asset classes be? Well, health, wealth, and purpose.
Okay.
So our app is predicated on this intersection of optimizing mental wellness using health, wealth, and purpose. And that's the idea of the Brighton app. And so that's what we built. And right now, it's hard to keep up. I mean, we have employers interested, schools interested. Again, I can't explain how this is all happening, but I think the lesson for me ties when you open your heart and you have less fear and scarcity in your life, and you fill your heart with love and empathy and compassion, no matter what you're in. There's abundance that happens, and it's not financial abundance. It's more of just an openness to accept the love that's already been around you your whole life, but we're just not aware of it. We're so aware with our own bubble.
Yeah.
And we run through life thinking that we care about Ty, but we really don't.
Right.
But after you've been humbled, like I have been, you generally do care about other people. And so the app is predicated on that, self-assessing, autonomous learning. It's all AI driven. And it's what my CTO, my co-founder, Carson, has built. I just like, wow, it's powerful. And he was my son's best friend in high school.
Really?
And yeah, which is, again, I could go on and on and on about what Brighton is attracting from the universe. The people are just plopping into my life. It's even just bumping into you again is a blessing. But when Seth died at 23 on October 4th of 16, 3 weeks later, his daughter was born. And I have this angelic, beautiful granddaughter who's 8 years old. She's the love of my life, and her name is Brighton. So when I was thinking of what do I name my startup company, it's like right there in front of me.
That's awesome. We
took the O off to protect her innocence, but she asks me all the time, "How's my app doing, Grandpa?" You know, and and I don't know what's going on, dude. There's just something magical going on, and I think the lesson is this: is if you open your heart, if you're an advocate in recovery, if you're a coach, if you are a speaker, if you're not, if you're just a dad or a coach or a neighbor, open your heart. There's love all around you.
Yeah.
Nothing's as bad as you think it is. It's probably not as good as you think it is either. There's some balance and harmony. And the real peace is in the stillness, you know, and fear lives in certainty. And the more that you are afraid to take risks in your life, the more you feed the fear. And so write that book, start that podcast, go on that trip, learn to scuba dive, you know, jump out of an airplane. Just keep challenging yourself, because the moment you stop, then you start really dying. You know,
absolutely.
I really believe that.
Yeah. One last thing. I always ask guests at the end of the show.
Oh, no. I don't know if I want to hear this.
So this is about long-term solutions, right? And so that can include a lot of different things. And so I know it's not easy to come up with a direct answer, but with all of your experience, and it seems like you're sort of you're very self-aware, like even that you admitted, you know, that you were still in an angry spot whenever you were coming through Little Rock.
Yeah.
Even though you were hosting something that was amazing and it was attracting, you know, media attention and it was for a good cause and talking about your son. What is a long-term solution that you see is going to be viable to help people?
Help people.
Yeah.
I think to be less dependent on the government, on your therapist, on big pharma, to look in the mirror, have those epiphany moments where you just go, enough's enough. We're limited in how long we live here, whether you not believe in reincarnation or the afterlife, whatever. All you have is right now. You know, anxiety is something about us that is a future event that hasn't happened yet, and depression is a past event that's already happened, and we spend 99% of our life living in something that's already happened or will happen that probably won't happen the way you think it is, but we don't live right now. And so for me, it's being present, it's being aware, it's breath work, it's meditation, it's, you know, looking at a tree and thinking how beautiful that tree is instead of walking by it and just not being aware of the bird's nest and the caterpillar that's on the tree. Just be very present of what the universe has given us and breathe it all in. And think how lucky you are. I mean, 99.99% of all the humans that have ever lived are dead.
Yeah.
How freaking lucky are we? We hit the lottery. As miserable as you think your life is,
right,
you are so special. And it's taken me a lot of time, a lot of years, a lot of work to get to that place. Do I have bad days? All the time. All the time. I welcome them as my mental health workout, my mental wellness, fitness. Like, it's like, the last thing I'll say is, when's the last time you've ever had a gut-wrenching, just the worst cry you've ever had, fetal position on the floor, and after you were done, you felt worse? When?
I don't think I've ever had that where I felt worse after.
It's not possible.
Yeah.
You always feel better.
Yeah.
And so that's the hope that we hang on to. No matter what you're going through, that worst feeling you have, and I've been there, you will feel better. And then when you do feel better, enjoy it.
Yeah.
You know, because we climb mountains and we look and we like, and you look, oh, there's another one. And you just keep going, you keep going. Right. And that's addiction. You never get to any satisfaction because you're never present. And so for me, it's like, let's say Brighton does well and somebody buys it out and I make all this money. So let's say Brighton fails and I close it down. So I got to be present. I'm enjoying the process of building a startup. I'm enjoying the failures. It's like it's taken me, losing half my family and almost myself to get there, and something perverse about not trading it.
Yeah,
I'd like to have my family back, but I wouldn't trade the suffering. You follow me?
Yeah, for sure.
I wouldn't trade it for the world. There's not any pill that would ever want to make me feel better than going through what I went through. And it sounds odd, but people watching are going to say, yeah. I'd love to have my family back, but there's something about the struggle and coming out of it, or at least having small wins. There's no pill that can ever make me feel that high.
Right. For sure.
It's odd.
Jeff, it's been awesome. How can people follow you and obviously your app and anything you want them to follow you through?
First off, my email is jeff@brightonapp, and Brighton spelled BRIGHTN. So jeff@brightonapp.com. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. Or my team is. I don't. A lot of what people see is not me. Yeah. But probably the most intimate place I'm at is LinkedIn. And I have a Jeff and I have a Brighton profile. Okay. I'm mainly on the Jeff Johnston one. But reach out to me. I pretty much return any communication, people. But there's a lot more to this story to be written. And I think what you're doing is awesome. And it's an honor to have this conversation with you. And thank you for asking me to come and talk to you today.
No, I'm so glad you were willing to come and talk. And you're a very prolific talker. Yeah.
I just do.
Great. Right. I can just, by the way, Jeff, say something. Well, thank you again. If you are a first-time listener, then you can find this on any of the podcast platforms through audio form. But if you're looking for the video versions, you can find those on YouTube, and vice versa. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you subscribe on one of the podcast platforms, and from iHeart to Apple to Amazon Music. Whenever you share, whenever you subscribe to this podcast, whenever you share an episode, if you heard Jeff say something today that's like, that really hit me, that's really meaningful, and I know somebody in my life that could absolutely benefit from hearing that message, share it with them. Don't hesitate. Just share it with them. Not only does it help us grow this show and grow the message, but it helps us reach a broader audience of there's hope out there. There are a lot of people who are suffering through the same situations you've been through, even though if you think you're the only one in the world, there are lots of people who have thought that very same thing. And then, like Jeff, who has gone out and made it his life's mission to try to help other people. So thank you for watching again. And Jeff, it's been an honor. Thank you so much for being a guest.
Love you, man.
You too, man.
Good job.
Thank you.